Hola community, it's Pablo Vazquez here. Okay, keep it low because Blender 2.83 is finally out. The first LTS version has just come out a few days ago. It feels like an eternity. When I was going through the list of new things, it was like, what, this was added in 2.82 or 2.83? I don't know. It's out there. Go use it, test it. But today we gotta, look forward because there is a plethora, I love that word, a plethora of updates, performance updates, user interface, cycles, of optics, improvements, modeling improvements, sculpting improvements, I don't know, you name it. I have a list of things. I'm by myself today, but no, actually I'm not really by myself. I am with all of you here. So let's make it nice. How are you, everybody in the chat? I'm keeping an eye, by the way. Today also are using the least amount of delay, so we can chat, we can hang out. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna cover in questions today because it's really, the list is packed. So if there are already questions, which they are, I can see here, we can see that there is, there is already, oh, here, I'm all by myself, that there is a list of questions. Let's try and get started with that right now, as of now. So I don't know, it's just so exciting. I don't know where to start. There is, like, from the performance, or no, let's just start with the thing that was added like now, and that is available for everybody, and it's a thing that is gonna break the internet. So let me see here if you can see the difference. Let me see if you can spot it. Let's make Blender 1000% bigger because it just deserves it. Do you know right click select? You know this website? You probably do. Right click select. You go here into the right click select section of blender.community. This is where people make proposals and requests, feature requests, and how they should be done. If you sort by top, you're gonna get the most requested ones. Which one is the most requested one of all times? Drag and drop modifier stack. As you can see here, it's in development, but actually I can well, I'm admin, I shouldn't do this, but I'm an administrator, so this is just like maintenance. You know, I'm gonna save it as done. This is done. It's really done. And to be sure that it's done, we're gonna open this Blender 2.90 alpha. Still in alpha, so we still have room for adding more things. And here, what happens when you add a new modifier? This is how they look. Array modifier, bam. So you may notice that there is 3 little dots in here. So what if I have a subsurf? And now you can drag and drop. Isn't that great? Isn't that insane? So this work was done mainly by Hans Goody, the developer that recently joined the team by with help of the Blender Development Fund. So if you're a part of the Blender Development Fund, you're gonna see that your money is well spent, because this is just crazy. You just keep adding all of them, and then you can, this of click dragging, it works because it's panels. Basically they are just panels, so you can move them around, you can do all of that. And there is like all, like, if I don't know if you remember how it used to look. Let's go to the ancient times of Blender 2.82. This is also in 2.83, but in 2.82, if you add a modifier, you'll probably remember because it was added like 10 minutes ago. This is how a modifier would look. So you would see the you have these 3 buttons here in the modifier itself. When you collapse it, you will see that the whole thing was red. It means that there is no, like, this modifier doesn't have it's not working at the moment because it's not valid. There is no object to use as an armature. But also, if you had multiple modifiers, you would see that some of them were like not aligned. The icons, you will see like the render icon is on the left side, so it wouldn't align when you have these options. Also, there was these buttons to move up and down, but if you had to move the thing like all the way to the bottom, you have to go and hunt for the button to lower it. Not anymore. Not anymore, because now you can just like drag it all the way. And another great feature that was added for this little feature, it's not little feature, it's that it benefits other areas as well, because now when you're dragging a modifier or a panel and you move all the way down, you're gonna see Blender pushes the UI. Yes, welcome to the 21st century. Isn't that amazing? That is amazing. No, this is not for vertex groups. People are asking in the chat if this is for vertex groups. Not yet. That is a UI list. It's a completely different type of widget. What is implemented though is for constraints. So if you have constraint, you should see a constraint here. You should see the same interface that is going to be used in there. So it's the modifiers is the first implementation. Constraints, bone constraints, everything that it's this kind of widget is going to be replaced with the new one. Also for grease pencil modifiers, I think the grease pencil modifiers should work as well. So if you have a grease pencil effect, do they have it? No, they don't have it yet, but they should have the modifiers. Oh, am I in the 90s? Maybe I am in the 90s. No, I'm in the new one. Okay, maybe that still has to be added, but the big chunk is there. The big chunk is there, and it's amazing. So, isn't that great? And also, last modifier on top, please. That's a completely different change, actually. I don't know if we should change those things right now, but another benefit of having it all aligned, look at this. You can now click down and you can turn off or on all of the modifiers because they are aligned. You can disable all of them at the same time. You can also apply, duplicate, or delete when the panel is collapsed. So you can, if you want to apply the edge split, you can do from there. You can delete modifiers that you could do before, but you can copy. There was a button called copy, and now you can copy the it's the same, but it has a different name and a different icon because we don't use the word copy. It's actually a duplication because it's not like you put it in your buffer or something. So yeah, that works, affecting the UI work in the outliner as well. No, that's a different implementation. This is for panels, so insane amount of work. And also by not having the buttons here in the modifier itself, you can see that there is like now all the modifiers, the UI starts all the way here at the top, so there is more room for activity. Also, because they are panels, they can have sub-panels. So you'll see that the options that maybe you don't use so often, that they can be accessed here, or they can be hidden. So you don't have the insane list that some modifiers have. That is like the whole, like there is the data transfer, no, but like some vertex weight, like they're super long. Now there's a bit more tidy. So that is just one of all the improvements that we have for today. This is a crazy amount of work. Congrats Hans, and congrats Willem Reinisch, also working in the user interface side of things. And let's move on because there's a list. It's huge. So let's go. It's hard to continue after something like that. It's like, okay, what's going to be better than that? You know, what is good is to have also little things that happen that change here and there. For example, if you have a curve, I'm not going to drop all the bumps at the first 10 minutes of the show. I'm going to wait because there are also little bumps where I'm going to talk about performance and sculpt improvements. But continuing in the UI side of things, the user interface, the curve objects don't show the normals by default anymore. Before they will show like these lines, these points, which can be a bit confusing, and they're not really that useful like most of the time. So for that, you can disable or enable them from the overlays. You can click on normals, and then you can just change the size from here. You can also find, you're gonna find this new option. It's called handles. You can hide or show handles that are either selected. So for example, these 2 points are selected, so you're gonna see the handles only for this curve, which is not the case in older blenders in 2.83 and 2.82. You're gonna see I show up in 2.82, but it's the same in 2.83. So when you add a surface curve, so you're gonna see that this is how the curves used to look before, with the normals and all of the handles all the time shown, which can be a bit distracting. Right now it's a bit more clean, it only shows whatever is selected, but you can change that from the overlay settings and you can show all the handles and the normals, and there you go. And this is how you can make it look like it used to, making things a bit cleaner. Also, user preference in the user interface side of things, or is it, now I'm confused, isn't here in editing. So instance empty size, you can change the default size for instance empties. So if your scene is very large or very small, you can choose which one is gonna be the size of the newly added empties, which are usually used for instancing. Unreal or Unity? Godot. I'm answering questions from Godot. Is open source. The other ones are also Unreal also, but it's a different kind of UI. And also, I think it depends on what you want to use it for. I think Godot is good for smaller projects, but of course, if we're going to make something huge, maybe Unreal. I will go with Unreal. And the latest update is great. I never use Unity, but I hear shared feelings about it. Then, okay, more user interface improvements. Undo now works on text fields. So if you make a typo here, you can undo, and it's gonna undo the text that you wrote and not the whole the whole Blender. This is how it used to be. This thing is like, why wasn't it there before? Curve edit stroke panel layout also got improved. The Windows shell links and improved Mac aliases. This thing I'm not really sure. Oh, that's nice, puppy. So in Windows, on Windows, you're gonna see that this the Windows shell shortcuts now work. Apparently, they didn't work before. That's good to know. The point lamp in cycles now has a different. Here, if we go switch to cycles. In the point lamp, you're gonna see that now you're gonna see the W, so you see the watts. So this is the watts, amount of watts, and also the radius. The radius used to be called size, but radius is more accurate because it's usually the radio around. You know, it's not the size of the light, but it's the radius behind or around the point, the center point. Then. This one is nice. There is a new gizmo. It's a generic gizmo for snapping. So, you know, snapping, like when you hold control and you can snap it, or for example, you can snap to the vertices. For example, this little circle here. Now there is a widget that so far it's only added in the measure, so in the ruler. But we're gonna see it applied to other tools. So for the time being, you can see that it's here. So when you hold control, what you see here is actually a new widget that will allow you to help with the snapping. So it's a very promising little thing that, you know, it's like a seed that is gonna grow into other tools. And lastly, the eyedropper. When you select the color, for example, you can select. Eyedropper is it for colors or is it for selecting objects? Samples from other windows. The thing is, you can now sample from other windows from Blender, right? In the past, it was limited to the one you were working on, but now it's unlimited. You can do anything in other Blenders as well. All right, let's. Wow, that was 2.82 with the old how is it? So if I quit, yeah, they don't save. Wow, Blender changes so much in just from version to version. Let's switch topics, shall we? Sculpting keeps getting improvements. So one of the stars of the show in blender.org in the release, oops, blender.org here. One of the stars of the show was the sculpt brush. Everybody's loving it, everybody's using it. It's making like crazy folding. It's not only clothes, but also it's being used for like faces, for like wrinkles and stuff. This feature now comes as a filter, as a mesh filter. So you know the mesh filters that you can use for like making sharper edges or surface smooth. Now you can also apply cloth simulation. What does it mean? It means that you don't have to paint it anymore. You can basically just run the filter and it will simulate for as long as you have it on. So it's not gonna replace completely the simulation, like the actual cloth simulation. Like if you want to make a flag, animated flag, of course you're gonna use simulation because it's dynamic. This is not. This is it's gonna be baked basically. You apply the mesh filter, it's gonna simulate, and it's gonna stick to that shape. So it's a good starting point. If in this example, for example, there was a like a curtain that I was doing, Pablo with this, and it's pretty nice because it's fast. You don't always need to simulate, so it's gonna save you some steps. Also because it's so tied to the sculpt brushes and stuff, all the tools, all the masking, is that you basically don't have to set up a whole, you know, world of simulations and collision objects and stuff just for a tiny little, I don't know, cloth, a curtain that you want to try on your scene. It's community, bro. I'm reading the comments. A lot of hearts, a lot of happy people. I like that. How is 2.83 looking, going for you? I've seen some people reporting issues, graphics card issues, and I think those they're being addressed, of course. So please report everything that you see that it's weird, because it is going to help for the next release. Remember that 2.83 is a long-term release, and it's gonna come up. The 2.83.1 is gonna come up, is the next release that we are gonna see. By the way, the numbering changed for Blender, just a side note. But remember the A, B, C releases for like corrective releases, like 2.82A actually is the last one. Oh my gosh, wow, yeah, 2.82A is the last A release ever, because the corrective releases, getting a little bit sidetracked from the sculpt features, but the corrective releases used to have 2.82A. Oh, and that's a sad moment. Just realized that we are not gonna have letters anymore. The next corrective releases are gonna be called 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. That means that the when people call the beta B, it's gonna be actually beta. So no more confusion in that sense, and is a step in the direction of LTS releases. Alright, so let's move on, because I was showing some features for sculpting. You can now, in the pose brush, you can also change the scale of your mesh. So you can make big arm bros like here, or little tiny Trump hands down there. I shouldn't talk politics here, but basically you get my point. You can scale up and down your meshes as much as you want with the pose brush. It's super nice. Then face sets also allow now the pose brush face sets to have FK mode. So not only IK like it used to, like it was implemented in the past, where you get the movements of the bones like they were actually an IK chain. Now you can also have the FK, so even easier to to pose your characters as you're sculpting. And lastly, there is an improvement on the twist axis on FK. So previously the twist rotation was aligned using the stroke location. It was causing unexpected results for rotating some facets rigs. Now, faces rig, I like the new wording, is face sets rigs. Now the intersection with the first face set in the float fill is used. Interesting. So I don't know if you have seen it, but the speaking, getting sidetracked again, it's okay. It's okay, we're just hanging out. That Pepeland posted the other day a animation without a rig. So Daniel Martinez Lara is part of the Blender Grease Pencil team, but also teamed up with Pablo Dobarro to improve the tools in a way that the workflow of tools in a way that you can also animate, basically. Just it's an experiment, but it's just with sculpt tools and shape keys. So maybe this is the future, maybe, no, of course not. You still need some kind of rigging for a lot of more technical or more like advanced, I don't know, muscle simulation, whatever. But the example here for this kind of animations works really well with only sculpting. So sculpt animation, sculptination. I like that, sculptination. All right. Enough sidetracking, let's move on, because sculpting is not everything, right? You gotta start somewhere, and you usually start by what? By modeling. And what do you usually start with besides removing the default cube? What if you want to add the cube again? Or what if you want to add a cylinder or anything really? Well, there is a new tool in town. You're gonna find this little cube here, and let me put the right sound to switch into a new topic. Here you can add a cube, cone, cylinder, U-sphere, and icosphere from the sidebar. So it's a more it's a faster and more interactive way of adding these shapes, these very exciting step towards having like this. You can't edit the thing, so that like after you edit it, people will start asking like, hey, can I edit the default values right like the way you couldn't do it before, where you can select another object and then go back and edit it? Not yet, but it's a good step in that right direction, because it means that you can basically just create more easily this kind of things. I've still not really used, like you can use shift to make it like proportionally the same on all sides, and then you can use snapping as well. So it has many benefits so far, but I think this is baby steps. I think we can improve on this. For example, it could be that as soon as you click and drag, it could always like snap to the base. Right now you can choose surface, where it's going to snap to, cursor plane, cursor view, so 3D cursor, or the axis and the origin. Where is the origin going to be? So at the moment it's on base, so it's going to be the base of where you start moving, or the center. I'm not sure this is working though, because he has the center here, and I would imagine that the base means, for example, if I do this like this and then this, yeah, that the center should be down here, right? Maybe I'm not using it properly, but there is a thread. If you want to give feedback on this, please do so on Dev Talk. There is let me see, where was it? In feedback, user feedback. I can't find it. Anyway, you're gonna see it somewhere here. Other topics, I think, no. Anyway, why I'm lost here. There was a user feedback thread, if you search for it, maybe. So this is the add tool, primitive. Now I can't find it. Anyway, yeah, there was a user feedback. I know it's in the user feedback forum. Here, other topics, user feedback. And there should be tool here. Add object tool, requesting feedback. There you go. I found it. Yes. There is already a lot of feedback, and actually one of the first feedbacks is to start adding on the on the normal of the faces. I think this will speed up a lot, and if we had this in maybe sculpt mode in the future, that would be super nice. But I think it's important to have it first good in object and edit mode, and then move it to other places. All right, how's everything? How's everyone doing? Already 5:30 here, and I still have tons of things to show. There is a bunch of updates in the video sequence editor. Like, the list is very long. I can't really show everything here. For example, there is the add buttons for swap effects. There is a lot of UI interface tweaks that I will try to mention them in the not in the live stream now, but in the recap video that I'm gonna do next week, which is gonna take me so much because there is so much to cover. So let's continue. Let's go into cycles. Let's bring it up a little bit. So who uses cycles? Who likes to wait for renders? Not any. Well, waiting for renders is getting shorter and shorter with cycles, because there are features such as the, for example, if I have lots of people are using cycles. There are features that are just insanely crazy, such as, for example, let's go to the. Do I have here the shot? There is a shot that I like to use always, which is the shank shop here, this one. So, you know the RTX viewport denoising, that crazy, I hope it's not compiling the kernels, but that crazy feature that allows you to denoise in the viewport as you see it, as you browse around. That is one of the main features that were added for Blender 2.83 LTS. You can see here the demo, and you can see the difference, right? This is with RTX on, and this is RTX off. Well, this is no longer linked to RTX. This option is gonna be available here. I don't have it compiled. I don't have compiled the GPU support because I made a tutorial on how to compile Blender and I didn't include this part. But you're gonna see this effect, the denoiser option. You're gonna see it on older graphics cards as well, on non-RTX. So for those that don't have the really, RTX is a new thing, so it's more expensive than regular graphics cards. But this, more like a few days, this morning actually, a few hours ago, the commit was added that allows you to use features that are usually limited to RTX, such as the viewport denoiser with older graphics cards. How old? A 1080, for example, a 1060, a 10, even older, 900, 9X, 980, for example, that are also, they should also be able to work with the denoiser. However, of course, the denoiser feature is gonna be there, but the performance is not gonna be there because RTX graphics cards have the have specific cores for that. They have CUDA cores and they have tensor cores, these other type of cores that allows you to use those only for that task, for example, for the denoising. That's why it's also fast. The GTX graphics cards don't have these cores, so the performance that you see on RTX is still gonna be faster, but the feature is gonna be there. So it's something to be really happy about, because now it means that everybody will have denoiser. But yeah, don't expect the same amount of performance. However, cycles, another massive feature that was added, and I wish they would put a picture because it's just too epic. This added shadow Terminator offset parameter, and there is the pictures. So do you recognize these issues? they show up when you have a low poly mesh and you use cycles, and the shadows look like this, like squares. Do you recognize this? Well, forget about it, because there is a new setting, Shadow Terminator Offset, that you can set to get rid of them. Yes, you can get rid of them. It's a setting per mesh. You have to enable it here. I think it's in the mesh settings. This I haven't tested myself. I'm just going blind here. I shouldn't do this. Oh, here I'm in 2.82 actually, and let me open 2.90, and it's in the here normals, and now I don't know where I'm gonna find it, but it's somewhere here. Cycles, of course, it's a cycles setting. So cycles, mesh, and there should be here a setting which I can't find, but trust me, it's there. I should just find where the button is, but it's there, and it means that you don't have these issues anymore. It's a per mesh setting, so it means that it's not that you just turn it on and it's gone. It's some meshes are gonna be gonna have more issues with it. Some are gonna need a different setting, so that's why it's not like a one button, or not even a button, that fixes all. You need to tweak it in order to see the effect. So super exciting that this is finally here. Cycles getting better, and apparently it's based on the work by Apple Seed renderer team, so congrats to them. If you don't know them, they are a render engine, open source, that it's been around for ages, and it's good that they found a solution, a workaround, and this can be also shared with Cycle. You see, go open source. All right. Now for the big things, because what is there is also, well, I have some potpourri sections later that is gonna talk a little bit of everything, but let me switch gears again, and this show just keeps getting better. Performance is the name of this section, because I don't have a graphic to show, but I don't know if you notice. Have you run Blender 2.90 with SoftSurf lately? Have you noticed anything? Well, let me tell you a story of old SoftSurf. No, basically, SoftSurf is, like, long story short, 10 times faster. In some cases, well, you could also say 1,000% faster. In some cases it's a bit less, some cases it's a bit more. It depends, of course, in your computer. So if you have a dual core, maybe you don't see that much of a difference, but you have like a 6-8 core, and your computer is faster. The faster it is, and the more threads you have, it's gonna be faster. And I don't know if you notice what I'm saying here, but I'm saying that it depends on your CPU. A little bit of GPU, but mainly CPU. So what I'm trying to say is that OpenSubdiv, or SoftSurf, it's gonna be even faster. So now we're talking about a 1,000% improvement. It's about 10 times faster in some cases. It depends on, it's a per case basis, in object mode and pose mode. But if you wait a little bit longer, we might see even more improvements. So this is going to become even faster than 2.7 and even faster than whatever we had before, because there is still the GPU part to be done. I was asking the developer that worked on it, Sergey Sharivin, is working at the Blender Studio. You probably know him. It's a hashtag Sergey on Twitter. The work he's been doing. He worked on the multi-res. So the reason why multi-res for like apply base and all this crazy math work, it's because of him. The Depthcraft also was because of him, mainly that upgrade, and now he's working on OpenSubdiv, speeds up. So I think we can call 2.90 the performance release, right? I think so, because with all the performance increases in cycles or sculpting, edit mode, entering like edit mode and switching from edit to object mode should be slightly faster as well. Eevee should have solved a lot of issues that were there for Apple computers, for Mac users. So there is a lot to be excited about. That is one of the updates. That is like 10 times faster. You can't compete with 10 times faster, but you know, every little bit helps. Speaking of little bits, Jeroen Bakker worked in this little bit one, which takes a blend file playback. So when you're animating, when you press spacebar and you're playing back, it this blend file from Gabi.blend is a character. It's a fairly simple character that was added in the Blender Cloud as part of some of the training that is available for the Settlers project. So Gabi, I think it's the one from this one is Gabi. So this character, have you seen it? It's available for free. All the files are here. Characters, Gabi.blend. This character is available for free in the Blender Cloud. Everybody has access for it. It's part of the Open App initiative by Blender Foundation. And this file went from 9.7 FPS to 10.5 FPS. Yes, is less than 1 FPS. It's 1 FPS. But if you pile it up with the previous additions, it's a lot, right? If that wasn't enough, you don't also work in this other little improvement that you can see here. Oh, the screen, sorry. Sorry. I got a bit too excited. This is Gabi. We need character. Okay, so here. I'm gonna share the link for you so you can actually test it yourself. Thank you for all the excitement in the chat. So the cache performance. So performance went from 9.7 to 10.5. So that is about 1 FPS, a little bit like 1 FPS. But there is also this improvement that on a Ryzen, on an AMD Ryzen, this was tested in this CPU. It went on a more complex shot from the OpenMovie Spring. It took it from 10 FPS to 11.5 FPS. So the bit that we were using before. So with these two updates, we're seeing about a 2-3 FPS improvement on top of the faster subsurf, on top of everything. It's just so exciting that we are seeing all of that, all of those improvements. And the other one that I was mentioning, it's this one, is the skip conversion from edit mesh to mesh in edit mode, which means that when you're switching between object mode and edit mode, you should see an improvement. This was a regression that happened in 2.8, so in 2.7 was a bit faster. Now that is trying to be back. And this one I don't have the commit log, but is the oh wait, don't spam, please. It's not spam. So far, so yet. The FBX importing is twice as fast on heavy animations. So when you import a FBX animation, you should see a much faster improvement. Actually, this wasn't like last week. I think it was like 10 days ago that was added. More features. Let's switch. Library overrides. Library overrides is one of those features that has been added in 2.82, if I'm not wrong. I think it was 2.82, and it's the future of proxies. Basically, it's something that you can't work without for production, right? Like linking your characters is more important than pretty much, I don't know, anything if you want a little bit of organization. So library overrides, I think they were 2.82. Or not even 2.81. Wow. But here, overrides. Yes, library overrides. So they were added in 2.81, but they were not there. They were just not there yet. There are two developers now working pretty much all day on these improvements together with the Blender Animation Studio team to make not only like adding features, but also like improving the workflow for like when you add a proxy, when you add it to a collection, when you make it local, when you override it, and so on and so forth. For example, now the constraints are overridable. every constraint you can override right now. Also, the camera data block properties are overridable. It means that if you link a camera, you can override specific all the settings in your cameras. So that is fantastic when you want to work when you have one camera setting that is across all the files, for example, with a specific depth of field or setting or whatever, but you just want this shot to be slightly different. Or some settings like the passepartout, like the dark edges around the camera. If you link that, you couldn't change it. Now you can. And all the modifiers properties are overridable as well. So isn't that exciting? It is pretty exciting. I don't know if here's modifiers. Here, make all modifiers overridable. This is huge. This is huge. If you don't know what this means, it's because you don't need it, but you're gonna need it when you work in more complex files. When you start linking libraries and stuff, now you can override it. That is crazy, crazy improvement. All right, potpourri. Let's go fast, because otherwise we're gonna run out of time, and there is nothing to. There's no time for the questions, for the answers. Modifiers. Now, all the modifiers that with the vertex weight modifiers now have an option to normalize the weights. So Cody Winchester added this setting for the edit mix and proximity modifier, where you can normalize them. So if you have one that is values too high or too low, you can normalize them. Super nice. Then, well, this is something that I was talking about before, that Eevee, there is a bunch of refactors that should make it a bit better, more performant, but also fix a lot of issues in OS X and Mac OS. But you can see the effort that is going through the cleaning and through the tidying up the code and make it more future proof. There's a lot of technical depth that is being done there. What is a technical depth? Is when you do things like maybe fast or in a rush because you want to get it done, and then you know you're gonna have to look at that code and fix it in the future, but you just leave it because we have to release or something. And then when you have a bit more time, you go through that and you fix it. Well, that's what's going on now. Fluids. There is a foundations. The foundations are laid down to be able to use OpenBDV files for input and output of MantaFlow. So you can bake basically and export and import OpenBDV. So that will take another big step in production use of Blender, because it means that you can not only import but also export this kind of fluid simulation. Super nice. The Grease Pencil build modifier now has an option where you can control. If you go to the build, if you have the Grease Pencil monkey, for example, and you use the build modifier, you're gonna see that the growing has a. I'm in 2.82. I'm gonna close 2.82. It doesn't have all the features. It's not cool anymore. The only cool thing about 2.82 is the splash screen by the Deuce. Anyway, it's a setting to control the factor of the build. So when you build something, you're gonna see that instead of going frame by frame, you can do a factor. So it's a bit more. So instead of going, stroke by stroke, you can just do the whole thing, and you can control where it's gonna be. You can choose, and it's more freedom basically to control the building process. The UV editor improvements. So there is an option in the UV editor that allows you to create scenes from islands. So the scene from islands, where you can, for example, there is an island. There is an option to create scenes from islands. Now it works on selection. Before it would use always the whole part of the mesh, but you couldn't apply it only for like one little bit. That should work right now. It's basically works, and it's gonna make it only if for example, you have this. I have this island, and then I can make it make the scenes only, you see, on whatever is selected. The Annotation tool has a new stabilization option where you can, when you are using this Annotation tool, you can also now choose the stabilization, and basically it's gonna have this little trailing dot that allows you to make more stable strokes. And that's it. I'm gonna stop here because otherwise we're not gonna have time for covering the rest of the features. I hope you enjoyed this marathon of features that the developers have been adding. I had a lot piled up because it was many weeks that I haven't shown what's new in Blender, because the developers were focusing on mainly on bug fixing. But as you can see, apparently there is also a there is also a lot of work going. Let's continue. I need to drink. I need a drink, but I'm gonna have a mate, which is like tea. Don't think weird stuff. So, for the 33 comments, the first one by OGRM. Hi Pablo, testing 2.90. I got quite a lot of random, non-reproducible silent crashes to desktop. And I was wondering if Blender keeps some log files or so for this, so that I could try reporting them. Yes, there is a here. Actually, Harold, thank you very much for giving the documentation. Apparently, there is a page about the crash documentation. That is so nice. That's so nice. So thank you. Actually, I'm gonna give you another heart. So there you go. Your question, actually. That is the best way to go about reporting them. Actually, the best way to go about reporting them is to run to compile Blender and run it with the GDB. Like it's a way to get more logs from it, but it's a bit more advanced. So Lapisi says, I saw the optics on non-RTX cards news. I'm wondering, does this require driver updates or will it work right away? Well, depends on how recent your drivers are. This should work right away with like if your drivers are new, like if you updated yesterday for 2.83, then that should still work. It was a Blender limitation that it was cropped to that, and I think maybe it must be because it's good to have 2.83 with only RTX graphics cards, you know, for people testing it and then moving into the GTX graphics cards. Let's move on. Hola, saludos desde Chile. People from Chile are watching. You know that I do these live streams in Spanish every day. Like 1 hour from now, I'm gonna be doing this in Spanish on Blender on youtube.com/Blender Hoy. Here, Blender Hoy is like the BlenderToday version of Spanish. Hi Pablo, what happened with the light groups feature? I could not find it on Blender Dev. I think it's still being worked on. There is no updates as far as I know, but I wish this would come. And I skipped this question actually. What's the status of SCAD snaps? I'm not sure, but since Germano Calvacante, the developer that made all the snap improvements that we've seen so far in the last few builds in Blender, last few releases, the widget that I showed today, the snap, it's also made by him. So I hope we can see this improving in the future, near future. Let's see. That's a cool surname. Yeah, that's a very cool surname. I'm looking at the chat. People from Colombia as well, and Chile. What happened with all this thing? Well, there you can go and see the next live stream. Momotron, speaking about performance, how many push-ups can you do, Pablo? About pushing myself up from the bed in the morning. That's a that one count. Aside of that, here's my Blender related question. Is there any roadmap for improving color management in Blender? It's great that there is a new sky texture included, which only works in cycles for now, but this is already a step in the right direction. To support 10-bit wide gamut monitors, Blender drawing code needs to be improved to output 10-bit instead of 8-bit. Minimum should be 12-bit, downgraded as required. Dolby Vision is, yeah, no, I don't know if there is a roadmap. I know that it's part of the plan, but I don't know the status of it. I know it's super important for a lot of people to have proper color management. So yeah, it's a topic that is being very seriously taken, but it's hard to get it right apparently without breaking. And I mean, if you add a new color space, whatever, but anyways, but it doesn't seem to be easy. I personally don't really care that much about about color management. When I make something, I just look in my screen, on a crappy screen, on a good screen, on my phone, on the TV, and then if it looks well in all of those, that's okay. But that's the point of view of an artist that makes YouTube content, basically. I know if you are more serious and if you work with other environments, then you have to agree on one color management pipeline. Christoph, hello Pablo, thank you for your work and the Blender team. Will be rigid bodies and cloth together collided again? We'll have to see. We have to wait for physics, for node physics. I bet they will, because if we have a unified node-based physics system, then it should be part of the plan. The next question, Jan Alexander. Hola Pablo, are there any plans of thoughts on applying animation layers natively in Blender? I know there is a paid add-on now, but it would be nice to have it natively in Blender. This feature is one of the reasons why Maya is industry standard animation. I saw the paid add-on, which is basically just a UI for a better NLA. As far as I know, I didn't open the add-on itself. It also has other features that are not, but the layer concept is already available through the NLA. It's just not a great UI, but it's part of the animation 2020, now 2021 or 2 to 2021, to improve the animation pipeline in Blender. Hey Pablo, please add a more direct way to move the pivot in Blender. It feels hacky and slow to use a 3D cursor, coming from industry software user. Hello industry software user, there is a more direct way to move the pivot. I think you probably mean the center of the object, because other industry standard softwares don't have a 3D cursor. Blender does, and you can move this point by changing the way you transform. So you can do here in options, you can choose affect only origins, locations, or patterns. If you click on origins, you're gonna be transforming only the center. I think that's what you mean with the moving the pivot. In Blender, pivot and origin is two different things. Origin is where the object is by default. Then it becomes it pivots if you don't use the 3D cursor. But then, if you use the 3D cursor, which is a more advanced, more and more free way to move your things around, it's a different point of view. Next question, Slug Nugget says, congrats to everyone on the release of Site 283. Congrats to you, to the community. It's a community effort. You're entitled to one pat on the back. Thank you. Question time. What is the difference between Eevee viewport and proper F12 Eevee render? When rendering a detailed scene, F12 render can take 2 to 3 minutes, while a viewport render takes 10 to 11 seconds, with the same amount of samples and subdivisions. What gives? Well, I don't know about the inner workings of that, but when you press F12, you're doing a bit more than, you're calculating all the modifiers. Again, you are maybe running simulations that you were not running before. You are if you're writing to the disk, there is some information there that goes, some time that is spent into writing to the disk and reading from the disk. There is the render samples. There are hacks for the viewport that are not in render. So that's why render is always going to be faster. Putting all the images in memory also, that's another step. I don't know exactly the answer, but there are differences that I'm forgetting right now. Let's see. Harold Jerenton says, "Hola Pablo, congrats for Coffee Run." Yes, the way I didn't even. Oh, we talked about it last week. This first long-term support release. I hope you're doing well after this pandemic crisis. I think we're still on it. It's so nice to see you live on a Friday. Thank you, Harold. It's very nice. I hope you're also doing well in these pandemic times. Among other things, the world is going through such a moment that it's nice to be sharing good news. I have a question regarding Everything Nodes. Is there a roadmap of some sort? We know that Particle Nodes is coming pretty soon. It is. But when could we expect the rest? Rigging, animation, sculpting, etc. It's very hard to know when. The when, like as in time. Like put it, okay, this month, because it depends on how the Particle Nodes project it's right, taken by the community. It's gonna be part of 2.90 for sure. The Particle Nodes is one of them. Is the big thing. And I don't know if you follow the commit logs of Blender lately, but there's so much work done by Jack. Let's see if we can find the Jack Look with like refactor of the code, refactor new API, a new, I don't know, functions inside of Blender. There is so much that this great human being is doing to look all the refactors, moving stuff around, some fixes as well, because we will have to work on fixes, simulations. There is a lot of code already inside of Blender that it's used, that is not being used for as a user. You don't see it, but it's already being ported because it's a change in how Blender handles data and how data talks to each other. So it's pretty big. I wouldn't expect the rest to take as long as Particle Nodes, because Particle Nodes is like the first nodes and then particles. So yeah, sculpting, I'm not sure how that would work. I think maybe rigging or modifiers should be next. Is this transition towards procedural workflows going to happen gradually? Yes, gradually. Or will there be some kind of period during which the devs are going to make everything node-based? It will happen gradually. I think it's important to keep some of the workflows working. So the first one is going to be 2.90, and hopefully we're going to see more areas in Blender until 2.91, 2, and 3. 3 is the LTS. 293 is the LTS that's going to come out next year around this time, 2021. And then there is Blender 3.0, which maybe it's a good moment to break a lot of compatibility, because no procedural workflows are going to break some of the compatibility, but that's needed, for moving software. For forward, not software. Hello, you look great with longer hair. Put away that cap. Hey, thank you. I will do it. Weird reveal, but yes. I look like an idiot because I had the cap on. Anyway, the idiot face I think is not related with the with my haircut. Anyway, last question. Thank you for that. Hamad955 says, "Hi Pablo, I always enjoy the streams a lot. Thank you. I just have a small question. Is there any place to check for GPUs that support optics denoising? Can I use the optics denoising on Bone Studios Blender branch, but not on the new?" All right, so Bone Studios Blender branch, he is using this hack to give non-RTX graphics cards the ability to use the denoiser, the viewport denoising. Since this morning, this hack is no longer needed. Now you can use it. And to know which GPUs are supported, you have to look at the architecture of the GPU. So it's if you do like NVIDIA GPU Maxwell, Maxwell is the name of the architecture. So if you look at Maxwell maybe list, and you can see here Maybe you can see it here already. So 750, as old as 750, there are some GTX 750 that support that have the Maxwell generation, so they will support it. Then the 900s are gonna support it, and the 10, they're not here, but all the 10s like 1080, 1060s, and 70, 16 something, also they should work because they are after Maxwell. Actually, if you go to Wikipedia, you're gonna see Maxwell architecture. This is the one that supports it. The successor is a Pascal, so it means that also these ones are gonna support it, 1080, 1070, and so on. And the next one is the Turing. These ones are the more recent ones, and this one also have the support, of course, but you know what I mean. From Maxwell onward, just check your architecture. Shameless feature request, interactive physics. Shameless, nothing is shameless. Kind of. You made a video for asking a feature. Interactive physics. I think this is interactive mode that it was planned that let's see, I don't know. The first time I see this video, by the way. The idea of the interactive mode in Blender that Ton had, and that unfortunately the developer couldn't continue work on it. The idea was that physics, there could be like an interactive mode that is not frame based. What is a frame? Right? It's time, so time based. Maybe you just run the clock, and then everything is interactive. You can move these things around. You can basically see everything happening in real time, and then you can bake it into frames. But that was the idea that Ton had. Unfortunately, that project is no longer being developed by the original developer, but it's up for grabs for other developers. Marcelo Ferrante says, hello Pablo, I made my first patch, congratulations. What do? Add generic precision to X3D and OBJ exporter. Well, that's pretty nice if you use X3D and OBJ. Congratulations on your first patch. I hope you get it in. Did you get it in? Is it on? Is it on? Confirmed. Normal. It's a patch. There's discussion going on. Discussion looks good to me by Campbell. And there's more discussions. Isn't that great that anybody can make a patch and you get like Brecht, he made cycles and he's giving you feedback, and the Campbell also, or like anybody, Bastian, and you get like big names giving feedback on your code. That's amazing. Hi Pablo, did you know the optic features? Yes, I know. Kaichu Chun. Hi Pablo, so happy with the release of 2.83. Likewise. Here I have some questions related to within in Mac OS. In the sculpt mode, the sneak hook brush is not generated extra mesh, but mesh with distortion, which was work in 2.79. I don't know if it's maybe you were using in Topo. Also on Grease Pencil in the Mac, the drawing is not as smooth as the demo, still created line with corner. Please report these issues. I don't know if it's an issue only for Mac, but it could be. In the past, actually, the strokes will work fine on Linux, but not on Windows, and that was fixed for Windows. Maybe there is a fix missing for Mac OS. Samo says, hey Pablo, I miss you, and I miss watching your stream. Thank you. I'm glad to see you're well and safe. Thank you. I am. Except my haircut, but everything else is fine. Does the Blender team know about the Sorcar procedural modeling add-on? I heard about it. I don't know if I've seen it. And if they do, will the Everything Knows procedural features be similar to this add-on? I'm not completely familiar with it, but there still needs to be defined what the procedural modeling is going to be. But you can imagine, I don't know this add-on, but you could imagine as the big names in other softwares, how they do it. I think that is a better reference than the add-on, because it means the add-on is limited to what the API can do, whereas other softwares is just not. Hola community, and also hola Pablo. Quark night Tom. How long are we here? 1 hour 6 minutes. Oof. All right. 5 more questions. Hola community, it is really great. Feels really great using 2.83. So much faster than any alpha beta builds. All thanks to the great devs. And thanks to the Blender Development Fund that is actually paying the developers and the contributors and everybody. Actually, there is 600 new contributors compared to 2.82. So that is great news. Thank you, community. All right, so any further updates on node-based systems that Jack is working on? Maybe node-based particle system? Yes, this is being worked on and is part of 2.9. Question number 4, Peter Boss. No, not sure if it's a bug, but collections have a render option in Outliner. Unlike other stuff, it's not animatable. Making it animatable can reduce render times a lot in certain cases, and don't render the world if it's inside your house, for example. I'm not sure if that's a limitation in the engines themselves, but I'm not sure. I think we need overrides in general, and that should make it, that should take into account collections. Number 3. Boji says, sorry for asking such a question. Actually, performance is on same level as they've been. This is not rocket science. All we can open 279 and 2.83 and test. What kind of performance are you testing? Subsurf, yeah, if in 2.83 nothing changed. In 2.90 alpha, and in fact as of like today, so that's gonna be, oh, I think that's the last question. That's gonna be the improvements in 2.9, not in 2.8. So thank you, but you should test with the latest builds. Should be much faster. We have 3 more questions. Let's see if more people, and oh yeah, actually they did. Let's go to the bottom to find the newest ones. Where is the render pass preview mode in 2.8 now? I need to preview the object's render visibility without actually render the scene. How to do this? Render pass preview mode in 2.8 now. Render pass preview mode. What do you mean? When you render, the pass preview mode is here, which in Eevee now includes the new passes. If you mean maybe the outliner section, then is here. It's this button, the little camera icon. I think that's what you mean. Not sure exactly which one you ask for. Echoes ask, hi Pablo, would you like to know, would I like to know if we will see per light AOBs or custom light AOBs soon in Blender? It's really useful for lighter artists like me, and I think Blender needs improvements about lighting. Yes, light linking, light editor. What is a light editor? Like a place where you can edit all the lights information. I hope, actually I am in an add-on that I made. I think I even have something like that for, I don't know if it's still there. Yeah, Lighter's Corner. It's a place where I can edit all my lights. It's an add-on called Amaranth. It's in bare bones basically, but it basically allows you to disable and enable lights and their rays from one place. It's built in Blender, by the way, but it's planned to have AOB, shader AOBs. We have already light AOBs, I'm not sure, but light linking, yes, it's one of the priorities. If you want to know what is on the roadmap for cycles, you can go to developer.blender.org. On the sidebar, you're going to find render plus or and cycles. You're going to see here the list of features that are planned and the priorities and how they are doing. You can click on them and you can see, for example, what is gonna be when it's gonna happen, or more likely. Okay, 2 more questions. I'm running out of voice. Do you think Blender will not spend so much time on MantaFlow since they released the ability to use BDB files? What do you mean? Do you think Blender will not spend so much time on MantaFlow? No, MantaFlow, Blender has MantaFlow, and MantaFlow is not a Blender project, it's a library that is also developed outside of Blender, so it's gonna get updates from, you know, internally by Blender, but also from outside. And the fact that now we can use VDV files is not affected by it. I think Blender shouldn't rely on other softwares having VDB, should have its own VDB magic. Why is the magnet snapping with location bigger than rotation or scale? Also, is it possible to add volume passes to Eevee? Not sure, is it not there? Volume, yeah, there is. Volume scattering and volume, if I make a volume, well, it's there, I just don't want to lose time with this, but there is volume transmittancy and volume scattering passes in Eevee. And is the magnet snapping with location bigger than rotation or scale? I'm not sure what you mean. Is it a UI thing? If it's different or it feels different, then you should report the bug. And you know what I missed that I didn't say, that I didn't mention, is that the area that is used here for splitting the windows, this little area, now it's actually the right size when you use different. It's better, it's easier to grab basically, because before it was always stuck to the same pixels size, the action zone, than when you were not like when you were using different window sizes. So it felt really weird and it was hard to grab. Now it should be much easier. All right, I think with that, I close all the questions that I had, that what people were asking. How is everybody doing here in the chat? Is everything okay? Jeez, my hair. I mean, I'm still using 279. Okay, nothing wrong with that. 279 is awesome. I know people are still using 2.4 even. I mean, when people say no, because I need to use 2.8, 2.9, great things were done with 2.7. There was a film on Netflix that I was done with 2.7. So it's not, you don't have to always use the latest. Here we share the latest because it's fun, because it's Blender is really the only 3D software that can do this, that can share the news as soon as they happen, right? Or at least the only high profile one, because it's open source. You can add a button and tweet it about it. You can share it. You can tell your friends and family and share, hey, there is a new button. If your friends are using a GTX graphics card that is compatible with what we talked about today, you can go ahead and tell them, hey, remember that feature, the denoising in the viewport? Now it's available for your graphics card. Why? Because open source, because it's available for everybody. And you can use it and you can enjoy it, and it's just awesome. 2.83, 2.90, and the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I packed so many features that next week during the recap video I'm gonna have a little bit of a hard time to share this. I wish I can code, says Shapui Sat. I plan to come back with the code dive episodes on, I'm not sure if next Wednesday or the one after, but I want to continue with that and go back to real life after the 2.83 release. It's been every release is very exciting, and you get your heart pumping, and when you change the website and people go for it, and you gotta I don't know, make the Twitter and the image for Twitter and announce it and put it on Facebook and LinkedIn and all the social media stuff, and you see people excited, and the Blender website goes down and it gets slow, and it's just so exciting to make a release. I hope you enjoy it as well. Please share it, let people know that there is this thing happening in the world. There is fun stuff, there is bad things happening, but also there is good stuff happening as well, giving the chance to everybody everywhere in the world to do 3D, 2D, their passion, make a living out of it. So let's focus on the nice things while we can. Thanks for watching. If you're used to this show, if you're a veteran of Blender Today, you're gonna know that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now you're breathtaking. Thank you. See you again next week, same place, same time. Let's do it. Bye-bye. Doesn't work. Here. Ciao.